Now fasten your seatbelts, because the straightforward response that you might have heard is actually a great deception that we tell ourselves when we look at a map that is flat. The truth is much more fascinating, and it takes us on a journey through the very fabric of our world, the ingenuity of thieves from the early 20th century, and the specter of a supercontinent that has been forgotten. Let's see if we can retell this narrative. There is a trick to the map. The world is not what it appears to be. First things first. Let's dispel the delusion. Acquire a conventional map for the classroom or launch Google Maps here. It gives the impression of a wide, empty blue expanse, a terrifying watery desert that is located between, for example, Los Angeles and Tokyo. When you are flying directly across it, it appears to be the road that is long, lonely, and perilous. Imagine for a moment that you were to remove the map from the flat screen and then wrapping it around a globe. To demonstrate the distance between Los Angeles and Tokyo, take a length of string and stretch it. You will let out a gasp. Across the middle of the Pacific Ocean, the thread does not extend in a submissive manner. Instead, it makes a sweeping turn upwards, flying over Alaska, passing the Aleutian Islands, and very close to the Russian Far East before descending into Japan. This is the Great Circle Route, which is the shortest route anywhere. On a sphere that can be traveled between any two spots, the path that appears to be direct on a flat map is actually a cartographic trick. For human eyes that have been taught to read maps, the genuine direct path appears to be a detour. As a result, this northern route is frequently flown by airplanes. In a very literal sense, they are flying over the Pacific Ocean, but over only the northern border of the ocean. Having said that, this is just the first layer. The underlying reasons for why they do not fly over the center of the South Pacific are where the story begins to take on a more fascinating tone. Firstly, the oppressive might of the unforgiving middle. Imagine that you are lying over the Mariana Trench, which is the deepest and darkest trench on Earth, and that you are 2,000 miles away from the nearest speck of land. Suppose there is an urgent situation, problems with the pressurization system. The air inside the cabin is screened out. You just have a few minutes to reach an altitude that is inhalable. There is a medical emergency, and a passenger requires a hospital immediately. Over isolated places, even multi-engine aircraft have processes in place to deal with the possibility of an engine failure. On land or coastal routes, you are virtually always within 60 to 120 minutes of an airport that is available. Over the middle of the Pacific Ocean, you are several hours away. Aviation regulators have given this idea the official designation of ETOPS, which stands for Extended Range Twin-Engine Operational Performance. In jest, this notion is also referred to as engines turn or passengers swim. The Boeing 777 and the Airbus A350 are examples of modern aircraft that are so dependable that they have earned the ETOPS 330 certification. 2. The jet streams, also known as the hidden rivers of the sky. There are raging rivers of air that are known as jet streams that are located high in the atmosphere. Instead than just fighting them, pilots make use of them in the same way that ancient sailors made use of ocean currents. The North Atlantic jet stream is the most well-known of them, as it is responsible for propelling airplanes from the United States to Europe at remarkable speeds. On the northern path, there is a powerful river of air that is comparable to the one that flows across the Pacific Ocean. A flight from Tokyo to Los Angeles can take advantage of this tailwind, which will cut the flight time by several hours and result in an exponential reduction in fuel consumption. Flying through the empty South Pacific, on the other hand, would require you to contend with crosswinds, or, even worse, face the possibility of having no tailwind at all. In the aviation industry, where fuel is the single most expensive expense, this is not merely an annoyance. Rather, it is the equivalent of corporate suicide. 3. A geological conspiracy regarding the disappearance of Pangaea. Probably not something you've thought about. But here's a twist. Allow me to take you back 335 million years. All of the continents came together to form a single supercontinent known as Pangaea. It didn't crack in a tidy manner when it finally split apart. The continents tore themselves apart from one another, leaving behind a large marine basin that was devoid of any inhabitants, the Pacific Ocean. Let's take a look at a globe. Take note of the fact that the major land masses of the world, North America, Asia, Australia, and South America form a type of ring around the Pacific Ocean, which is referred to as the Pacific Ring of Fire. This ring contains all of the cities that the people live in, as well as the commercial centers and airports. All of the dots on the ring are connected by the flights. There is simply no large city in the middle of the South Pacific that requires a direct airplane link with another city that is also located in the center of the South Pacific. Air traffic will naturally congregate near the boundaries of our world because the basic topography of our planet, which is a remnant of the split of Pangaea, demands this. The mystery of the airport that has gone missing. Finally, let us wrap things up with a tale that exemplifies the rule. The illustrious coconut route. Island hopping in the South Pacific was a popular activity for Pan Am's flying boats during the 1930s. Before arriving in Asia, they traveled from California to Hawaii, then to a series of minuscule islands and territories such as Midway Atoll, Wake Island, and Guam. Due to the fact that the planes were unable to fly the Great Circle route over the icy north, this particular action was taken. And then there was World War II. Japan's bombing of Wake Island was one of the first strategic acts that they made. How come? In order to cut off this aerial lifeline, it drew attention to the extraordinary precariousness of the route. Something peculiar took place after the conflict was over. In the midst of the fight, a group of opportunistic pilots came to the realization that the isolated airstrips were now unattended. They began employing them as covert refueling stops for a new illegal commerce that they conducted, which was smuggling. They would fly from the United States to Southeast Asia, loading up on everything from pharmaceuticals to silk, and utilizing these forgotten atolls in the Pacific as their covert petrol stations. There was a brief period of time when planes were flying over the deepest part of the Pacific Ocean. These planes were driven by avarice and driven by infrastructure that had been ignored. This so-called coconut route eventually came to an end as a result of increasing plane range and tighter worldwide regulation. The airstrips degenerated into the surrounding bush, and the economic and safety rationale of the northern routes became the law of the land. Be sure to keep the following in mind the next time you examine a flight path from the United States to Asia, and notice that it is positioned close to the Arctic Circle. Geometry, the Great Circle, economics, fuel, and time. Engineering, ETOPS, safety nets, and geology, the ghost of Pangaea, are all performing a flawless dance before your own eyes. Rather from being a tale of avoiding anything, it is a tale of maximizing one's potential. In order to navigate the hidden and intelligent paths that are inscribed into the very nature of our spherical globe, the planes are following them.